Okay. Good morning. How is everyone doing? Okay, I think you should come forward. You shouldn't sit so backward. Come forward. Why don't you come forward? And nobody is sitting here. I don't know why. Come to the front. So we will, this is, I hope all of you have computers today. We will start using the spreadsheet hopefully from today. But we will first learn the concepts. Time value of money is a very important chapter. Okay, so without this chapter, without knowing this chapter, it's going to be very difficult to pass this course. Let me put it that way. Okay, so pay attention, get engaged, solve the problem right in the classroom, and raise your hands if you have any questions. Okay, all right. So we started with $1,000. We invested in a bank or any other institution, you know, that can give you some return. We assumed a 10% return on our investment, and I asked the first question, what is the value that you will get at the end of the first year, right? So then we started putting a little bit of definition. The value, the cash that you hold today, right, we call that present value. So in our problem, $1,000 is the present value, and I am defining the period, right. The period can be a year, half year, quarter, month, daily, continuous, it can be anything. So we will define the period. So we will start with 1 year because that is the easiest to do, and the rate of interest, which is typically defined as rate per year, that is the default. So rate per year, which is 10%, and I asked you what is the value that you will get at the end of the period. So to do that, we calculated the interest. So principal multiplied by, you know, in the other section I had a doubt about what is the spelling, is it PLE or PAL, and I don't know why I got that confusion there in the afternoon, but anyway, this is the correct spelling. Principal is the capital, right, that you have on hand. So principal or capital multiplied by the rate of interest 10%, 10 per 100, right, per cent, century is 100, and then period is 1 year, you will get 100 as the interest. Principal plus interest is your future value, that is what you will get at the end of the period, right. So we used pure logic to get here, right, we didn't, and now we are defining the formula. Future value is equal to present value times 1 plus r, the rate, raised to the power t, the time period, right, the number of period. So 1,000 multiplied by 1 plus 0.10 or 10 by 100 raised to the power 1. Anything raised to the power 1 is the same. So 1,000 multiplied by 1.1 is 1,100. Any questions so far? Everything is fine? Okay. Now the next question is, so if I draw a timeline, okay, have no idea why I am not able to make it work the first time. So, today t is equal to 0, okay. Today t is equal to 0 and so t could be equal to 1 . So, t is equal to 1, now t is equal to 2 and it can go on, right. This is my timeline. So, I started with $1,000 here, present value is 1,000, rate is equal to 10%. At the end of first year, my future value is 1,100. Now, my question to you is, if you want the future value in year 2, have a question, you both? Okay. I do see a lot of discussion going on, I do not know what is going on. If you have question, please feel free to ask me, okay. So, the question now is, what is the future value in year 2? If I ask that question, what would be your answer? Anybody? What is going to be your principal? What is going to be your interest rate? What is going to be the period? Anybody? Wake up. Yes. So, for the 2-year period I am asking, right?
So you take the present value, the principal value.
Yeah.
And times that by 1 plus 1 squared.
Okay, squared. So, now the question I am, so okay, that could be an answer, right? But have I told you I am going to pay interest on interest? I did not say that, right? So, the next question you really need to ask is it simple interest or compound interest? Now, what is simple interest? You do not get any interest on interest, okay. In that case, even for year 2, your principal is going to be what? The same $1,000, right. But if I said you will earn principal, you will earn interest on interest, now what is going to be your principal? It will be 1100. Do you see that? So, that is the key importance. So, now we are introducing a concept called simple and compound interest, right. Simple interest, there is no interest on interest. So, that means using simple interest, my future value would be equal to, right, 1000 plus 1000 multiplied by 10 by 100 multiplied by 2. So, I am going to indicate FV2 to indicate what is the future value in year 2, and I am going to indicate this as FV1, right. So, the question is, what is FV2? So, the FV2 future value in year 2 would be equal to 1000 plus, so this is going to be equal to $200, this is going to be equal to 1200, right. This is using simple interest. Now, what is compound interest? Compound interest is you earn interest on interest, very important aspect, right. If we don't understand this, then you will underestimate what you will get on your savings, and you will also underestimate what you will pay on your loan, right. Most people made this mistake when they got into various mortgage loans prior to the subprime crisis. You need to know what is your commitment. So, in this case, remember our formula, future value, the general formula is at any point in time t would be equal to present value multiplied by 1 plus r raised to the power t, correct. So, what am I basically saying? So, in year 1 my future value was 1100. In year 2 I am going to calculate for one more year. So, 1100 multiplied by 1.1, that should be equal to how much? So, $1,210, is that correct? Is that correct? So, in the case of simple interest, how much you are getting? You are getting $1,200. In the case of compound interest, how much you are getting? $1,210. Why you are getting $10 more? It is basically, it is 10% interest on the $100 that you received as interest in the first year. Do you see that? Right? So, in 1 year, right, using compounding. So, in this case interest on interest is equal to $1,210 minus 1,200, which is equal to $10. How do I get this $10? It is nothing but the $100 interest that I received in year 1 for 1 year period, right. This is interest in year 1. So, if I calculate this, I got this as $100, do you as $10. So, that is the interest on interest that you earn in 1 year, right. Now, using this general formula, I can calculate any number of years, right. Suppose I asked you the question, right, simple question. You save $1,000 each year for your towards your retirement, and you save for, let us say, 30 years, right. Obviously, you should be saving much more, you should not be just saving $1,000, right. If your average interest rate is 6%, right, what would be the value or the retirement nest egg that you will have at the end of the 30 years, right. So, let us do that problem. I want you to do on your own now. Okay. So, you save $1,000 a year for 30 years. No, let us not put $1,000 a year now. You save $1,000 today, because that $1,000 a year will complicate things. We will get to that a little later. Okay, you save $1,000 today towards retirement in 30 years. What is the value? Value at the end of 30 years if the interest earned is 6%. Can you calculate on your own? Apply the formula on your own. So, if you have Excel spreadsheet, right. So, let us look at the Excel spreadsheet now. So, I am opening the Excel spreadsheet. So, I have to enter the value. My present value, can you see this? I should make it bigger maybe. So, present value is $1,000, that is the value that I have today, right. Number of period. So, in your Excel spreadsheet, number of period is defined as n per, okay. Number of period is how much? 30. And what is my rate? My interest rate is 6%. So, if you are using the financial calculator, or even I think scientific calculator, you have to use it as a decimal. In the case of Excel spreadsheet, you will have to indicate either as a percentage or as a decimal. Okay. So, I am going to indicate that as a decimal. So, that should be equal to 6 divided by 100. Okay. And I am not receiving any interest payment in between, right. If I receive the interest payment, I am not receiving any cash in between within that 30 years. So, what I am going to calculate? I am going to calculate the future value. So, what I will do? I should say equal to, and if you see this function, right, you have a lot of functions here, statistical, arithmetical, financial, all of that, right, scientific, all of that. So, what you can do is, if you can search for future value, so you got the future value here, and if you click OK, you will get this. How many of you have seen this financial function? How many of you have seen in this? You have already gone through the Excel class, right, like 250, correct? So, you are familiar with this. So, the one thing that in the exams, when I give you this Excel spreadsheet, you may not get this full, you will just get the formula and what you need to enter, right. So, that is all you will get. So, I think I will post a model test before we do the test 2. So, in the case of rate, you have the rate, number of period 30, payment is 0, present value, typically what we would say present value a negative number, I will just talk about that. Present value is a negative this cell, and type is whether you receive the cash at the end of the period or at the beginning of the period. Because remember, if I receive the cash at the beginning of the period, it has more value than if I receive the cash at the end of the period, because I have to wait for a year, right. In this case, a period is a year. So, 0 is receiving at the end of the period, and number 1 indicates to the Excel spreadsheet that it is at the beginning of the period, right. If you are using calculator, there is a begin mode and end mode. So, and 0 is by default, right, the end of the period is by default. So, even if you do not put 0, it takes 0 as default. So, if I say OK, so if I say 0 and say OK, let us see what we get. So, at the end of is everybody getting this number? Okay. So, at the end of a 30-year period, 30 years ago what you invested $1,000, right, you receive 5,743.49 cents, and what is the interest that you are receiving on this? So, if I asked you the question, what is the interest that you are receiving, what would you do? So, interest is equal to future value minus present value. So, that should be equal to, I think I should put for the formula. So, that should be equal to future value minus present value 4,743.49. Now, suppose I ask you the question, what is the interest on interest? What would you do? My question to you is, what is the interest on interest? What would you do? Yes. Now, what we have computed is the compound interest, right? Now, we have to figure out what we would have received if we used a simple interest. Do you see that? Is everyone seeing that? Okay. So, what is the simple interest? So, I could say, so let me switch to, so we calculated that on the spreadsheet. Now, the next question is, what is interest on interest? What's going on here? So, it is the difference between, so simple interest would be equal to 1000 multiplied by 6 divided by 100 multiplied by 30. So, if I calculate this, so this is my simple interest, right. So, my future value using simple interest would be 1000 plus 1800. Remember, this is only the interest, okay. This is interest only. So, that would be 2800. So, interest on interest would be so my future value using my Excel spreadsheet is 5,743.49 minus 2,800, that would be equal to 2,943.49, or you could say, it would be 4743.49 minus 1800 you will get to the same answer. You either take only the interest or you take the future value and subtract. Is everybody clear there?
Where's the 4,743?
So, that is only the interest that we calculated, right, in the spreadsheet. Do you see that? Where is the spreadsheet? Right? So, you either take only the interest and subtract one interest using compound minus interest using simple, or future value using compound minus future value using simple rate. Is everybody clear there? No confusion? Any questions?
Can you go back to what you wrote?
Sure. So this is only interest, right? And these two are future value using simple and compound. Okay? Any other question? Now, how many variables we had? So, let us go back to our spreadsheet now. How many variables we have here? We have basically 5 variables, correct? So, I have given you 4 variables and I have asked you to calculate the 5th one, right? Now, I can give you, so I can ask the same problem like this, right? You deposit $1,000 today and after 30 years you receive $5,743.49. What is the implicit interest rate? Can I ask you that? So, basically I am asking you to calculate what is the rate, right? Or I can ask you this question: you deposit $1,000 today and after a certain period you receive $5,743.49 at the rate of 6%. Now, how long do you have to wait to receive this amount? Can I ask you that question? Absolutely, right? So given the other 4, you can calculate the 5th one. In this problem, because we are starting out, we are taking baby steps, we are assuming we are not receiving any payment in between, right? One cash flow at the beginning of the period and another cash flow at the end of the period, right? So, why the present value is typically indicated as negative? Because your money goes out of you, right? You deposit the money with the bank and you receive the money at the end of the 30-year period. So, I am going to typically indicate the present value because you know all these programs are hard coded, right? So, and they don't understand they don't understand what happened. Okay, because I used the negative, it's showing as negative. Okay, double negative became positive, right? So, outflow is indicated as negative, inflow is indicated as positive, right? That is true whether you use a calculator or whether you use a spreadsheet, it's the same, right? Okay. Now, I am going to ask you this question. So, why don't you try? Okay. So, let's do a problem. So, I deposit $10,000 today at the rate of, let us say, 5.045% for 12 years. What is the value at the end of 12 years? Calculate on your own. First, what I want you to do first you have to write the input, what is what, right? As I told you, Excel spreadsheet and calculators are all only tools, right? If you take garbage in, it will spit out garbage. So, the input has to be perfect. So, what is the present value? What is the rate? What is the number of period? Yes. Compound. Right? All the future problems that if I ask you this type of questions, it's going to be compound interest, right? If I am saying simple, I have to very specifically say it is simple interest. Okay? So, number of period is 12. You don't receive any payment in between. So, what will you do? So, if you don't want to use Excel spreadsheet, my future value at the end of 12-year period would be 10,000 multiplied by 1 plus 5.045 divided by 100 raised to the power 12. So, that should be equal to 1 plus 0.05045 raised to the power 12. Make sure you put the zeros in the correct place, right, when you are using decimal. So, this is my present value, this is my R, this is my number of period or T. So, this could be T or N. You know, many textbook show it as T or N. I am not sure what your textbook uses. I have to check on that. He is very tired. You are tired. No. The person sitting next to you, he is tired. If you are tired, your body just goes to sleep, right? So, do not wake up, particularly when you are attending the 8:45 class, get a good night's sleep. You want to be awake, right? Okay. So, what is the answer you are getting? So, in this case, my present value minus 10,000, number of period is 12, rate is equal to 5.045 divided by 100. Why is it not okay? Payment is 0. What is my future value? Future value. So, let me say future value is equal to, so if you just put the bracket, you get like this. This is what you will get in your exam. Okay? All right. So, rate, take the rate, comma and a space, number of period 12, space present value space, before present value I think I should get the payment, right. Payment is 0 and then present value, and even if I don't say 0, I will get to this number. Is everybody getting this number? Anybody not getting this number? Okay. So let's do one more problem. So the next problem is, I deposit $2,000 today and I receive $8,000 in 10 years. What is the rate? What is the rate? So first pay attention to the inputs that you are taking, whether you are taking those numbers correctly, because if you take that numbers correctly, your answer has to be correct. So problem number 3, what is the present value? $2,000. My future value is $8,000. I do not have any payment, and how long do I have to wait? How much? 10 years? 10 years. So now I have to calculate what is the rate, right? Is equal to rate so number of period, payment is 0, then present value, future value, and type is 0. I should have received my return is a 15%. Is everybody getting this number? So change the question. If you received, so let me ask you this question. Let's do the same question for the number of period now, right? So let's go back. So I deposit $2,000 today and receive $8,000, let us say at the rate of 12%. How long do I have to wait? So now I will let you do for some time and then I will So, my present value is 2000, I do not know. So, this is 12 divided by 100, payment is 0, future value is 8000. Now, I have to calculate number of period. So, first will be the rate, next will be payment, next will be present value, next will be future value, 0 is default. So, I will have to wait 12.233 years. Is everybody getting that answer? Try on your own, okay? Do not copy what I am doing. I want you to solve this problem on your own. Yes.
You're always putting the present value as negative.
Yes, because you know outflow and inflow, right? I deposit, money goes out of me, and in the future I receive the money. Okay? If you keep it that way, it avoids all the confusion.
Right.
Yes.
So for like on the test, we're going to be able to use Excel.
Yes.
Okay.
I will post a model test with about 10 questions or so. We will do that.
Like a practice test.
Yes. Yes. So that there are no surprises. You know where to, you know, the Excel spreadsheet you have to copy and paste a link, right? If you do not paste the link, then I do not get the spreadsheet, right? So, we will do the practice test. You can do the practice test at home any number of times, so that you are ready, right? There are no other surprises. That's how we will set it up. Yes.
So what kind of savings vehicles do you recommend?
What is the?
What do you recommend for like installments like this, stuff like this, like CDs or IRAs or?
Yes, exactly. So the example would be what? So if you put a CD each month, each year you are saving a CD for your retirement. Of course, CDs do not pay this much, and CDs rate vary, right? But assuming that you receive on average, this is the rate, what is the value that you receive at the end, right? So let us say you save, you are planning for your kids' college education. Kids might come sooner than you think, right? So you wait for 15 years and then you have a lump sum ready for college education, right? So those type of problems, right? We are starting out. We will get into more complicated thing. So this process, the process where I said today is the value that you deposit and what is the future value you get, this process we call compounding. Is everybody getting that? This process what we call compounding. And compounding is very powerful, right? The power of compounding is so very powerful. Now, so let us do one simple thing, right? So now we use the word compounding and the power of compounding. So let us take an example of the power of compounding, right? Many people, for example, in this country, if you have been paying attention to how people plan their retirement, right? Many Americans are not retirement ready, right? At the age of 55 and 57, people do not even have a $5,000 to $10,000 saving, right? They purely depend on social security and things like that. Is that a good situation to be in? No. And as young people, if you know very well, hopefully you will not make the same mistake, okay? One, because you do not even know by the time you retire whether we have social security or not, right? How many of you knew that problem? That people are far outliving their age now, 90, 95 and all that, And earlier people were dying at 60, 70, so you have to pay social security for a longer period of time and Medicare for a longer period of time, and that is why we, this country says it is capitalist country, right? How many of you know what is capitalism? You are on your own, right? Is it a capitalist country? Yes? How many of you say yes? If you are a capitalist country, you shouldn't be receiving social security and Medicare. So it's, I would say it's at least a quasi-socialist country, right? In India, where I'm from, you will be surprised. It's a socialist democratic country. That's how India declares itself. But does India have social security? You will be surprised to know India doesn't have social security. Okay? So count your blessings. That's what I would say, right? The political philosophy is a little messed up here. And the older people don't want to let go of the social security and Medicare, right? Where is it affecting? It's affecting the next generation. Right now, government has less funding for higher education, universities get less funding, and you guys end up paying a higher fee, a higher student loan. Do you see that? So, yes.
So instead of depending on Social Security to take care of us, what do you recommend?
What do you recommend? You have to plan your own savings. That's what we are coming to, right? So let us look at the power of compounding, right? So supposing, we had this problem. You saved $1,000 today and you waited for 30 years, we got to a number, correct? Now suppose you do the same math, but let's say you started 20 years later. So which means instead of having 30-year period as your savings, right, now you have only 10 years to compound, correct? So let's say, let's put some name to that problem, right? George saved $10,000 for his retirement 30 years ago. Okay. Michael saved $10,000 for his retirement 10 years ago. Okay. Question is, how much each one will have? Who is better off? So if I ask you that question, what will you do? So you can quickly do in the spreadsheet. If you don't know, if you don't have any spreadsheet also, you should be able to calculate. Future value at the for 30 years would be 10,000 multiplied by, let's assume the rate, I didn't give you the rate, assume 6% interest. Okay, so 1.06 raised to the power 30, and future value after at the end of 10-year period would be 10,000 multiplied by 1.06 raised to the power 10, right? You need to know that also, because this is what your Excel is really doing, right? Input output is one thing, but you are, as a business student, you need to know what goes on behind the Excel spreadsheet calculations, right? It's a good idea to remind you each time what is going on. So if you do that, So, let us put that in our Excel spreadsheet and see what we get. So, I will copy and paste this again so that we get the variable. So, my present value is a negative 10,000, number of period for one person it is 30 and for the other person it is 10, rate is 6 divided by 100, it is the same, payment is 0. Now, I have to calculate the future value. So, rate, number of period, first 30, present value, no, not present value, I think I will have to do the payment, present value, type is the same, and in this case future value would be equal to rate, number of period is 10 now, then payment is 0, present value is same 10,000, all of you getting these numbers? Did you do on your own? Did I make any mistake? So, you see the power of compounding. So, what is the lesson for you guys? Even when there is no social security, if you start saving early enough, and of course, here I am assuming a 6%, right? On an average, you know, stocks have yielded 6%, right? So, right now the philosophy is what? If you use a very broad based index fund with very low cost, very low expense ratio, right? Because mutual funds, if you invest, they charge you certain administrative fees, right, which they call expense ratio. So, if you pay attention to the expense ratio, because expense ratio eats into your return, do you see that? Correct. So, if you choose a, you know, if you do the investments, what they would say, if you choose a correct investment class, asset class, right, stock market have always gone up adjusted for inflation, right. So, they would say you would be broad based index, not in one stock, not in technology stock or some other stock, right. Technology might boom and bust, we have seen all of that, right. Do you see that? You see the power of compounding, what 20 years can make? You didn't do anything, your money worked for you, correct. Don't you think it is a useful concept to learn, right? Many people, the same thing, right, you can apply. So, we will see why a 15-year mortgage is better than a 30-year mortgage, right. So, based on these 5 variables, now what all you can say, right, each variable how it affects the future value. So, that is the question, right. Yes.
Do you recommend paying into the interest rate for a higher interest rate, or do you just go with what's given to you?
You can, these days you can, you know, you have all those price boards like Bankrate and NerdWallet. How many of you have heard those things, right? You can check which bank pays the highest CD rate and which bank, you know, which bank pays a higher money market rate and things like that. You can definitely, you have to definitely shop around, okay. It's always, you know, if buyers are not beware, people will eat your capital, right. If at all, even if you do not take anything, I think if you can manage your finances, you have earned whatever you paid for your class and more, right. Okay. So, now the question is, if I want a higher future value, my next question is, should I have a lower present value or a higher present value? If I deposit a higher amount, I am going to get a higher future value. Okay? So, the present value and future value are directly related. Do you see that? Right? So, if I have a higher present value, I will also get a higher future value. Now, the next question is, in terms of time, if I wait for a shorter time or longer time, which would get me a higher value? Shorter time or longer time? You have this example, longer time, right? If you wait for 30 years, you get much more future value than the shorter period of 10 years. Number 3, what about the interest rate? A higher interest rate or a lower interest rate? Obviously, higher return is going to get you a higher future value, correct? And payment is not a relevant factor in this example, but we will see later, okay? We will complicate our cash flows. We call this cash flow, right? One is a cash outflow, other is a cash inflow. We have not introduced any complication in between cash inflow or outflow. We figured out just one. What is the few? Any questions so far? Okay. Now I am going to reverse this. Okay. How am I going to reverse this? So let me frame the same question like this. What is called present value or discounting process. What we did so far is what? Compounding process. What we are getting into now is discounting process. So, now what did I do? So, if I draw a timeline, right, in period T1, I received $1,100. In time period T0, I have certain present value, and if I say 10% is the rate of interest, right, I am asking the question, what is the present value, correct? I can ask the same thing, right? And this process we call it discounting, right? If you intuitively, if you think, I have a higher future value, but if I want to know if I receive $1,100 1 year from today, and if I want you to tell me what is that $1,100 worth today, what am I doing? Given the rate, I am using the very same formula, right? So, I know future value at the end of period 1 is present value multiplied by 1 raised to the power 1 plus r raised to the power 1, right. So, now I rearrange the formula, present value is equal to future value at the end of period 1 divided by 1 plus r raised to the power 1. That is all. It is the same thing, but I am. So, which means your future value will always be higher than the present value as long as there is a positive discount rate, right. If there is a 0 discount rate, what would be the value? It would be the same, right. But right now, we are not talking about 0 discount rate, right. We are discounting at the rate of 10%. So, 1,100 divided by 1.1. So, that should be equal to $1,000, right. So, $1,100 that you receive 1 year from today is worth only how much? $1,000 if the interest rate is 10%, or we also call that discount rate if the discount rate is 10%, right. So, suppose I asked you the question, you received $10,000 5 years from today, right? I think there are two buttons. You received $10,000, you will receive, I should not use the past tense, right? You will receive $10,000 5 years from today. How much is it worth? If the discount rate is 8%. So, what will you do? So, future value at the end of 5-year period is present value times 1.08 raised to the power 5. So, present value is equal to 10,000 divided by 1.08 raised to the power 5. So, you can do the number crunching in your calculator, or let us do our Excel spreadsheet. I do not know the present value, number of period is 5, rate is equal to 8 divided by 100, payment is 0, my future value is 10,000. I am going to calculate the present value, right. Present value is equal to rate, number of period, payment, and future value. 0 is the same, I am receiving at the end of the period. So, the $10,000 that I am going to receive at the end of 5th year is worth only 6,805.83. You should be indifferent between the two, right. If I received $6,800 and $805.83 today, or $10,000 5 years from today, I should be indifferent if the interest rate is 8%. Is that clear? So, now let us figure out, again, you can, given the other 4 numbers, you could figure out what is the 5th number, right. So, let us figure out how the relationship works out. Okay. So, given the future value, a higher or lower future value will give you a higher present value. Instead of 10,000, if I put 20,000, your present value would be higher or lower? It would be higher, right. So, a higher future value will also give a higher present value. Okay. What about the interest rate? What about the discount rate? A higher discount rate will lead you to a lower or a higher present value. So, in Excel it is not so very obvious, right, but if you go back to our logic, right, that is why the logic is so very important, right. If you go back to our logic, present value is equal to future value divided by 1 plus r raised to the power t, right. Now, if because the future value is in the numerator, A higher numerator will lead you to higher present value, correct? Now, what about the interest rate? What about the discount rate? A higher discount rate, will it give you a higher future value or lower future value? You have to think. Just look at the formula, you can say. Let me give you an example. 100 divided by 5 is how much? 100 divided by 5. 20. You shouldn't be thinking this long. It should come faster, okay? You have a fantastic calculator up here, because if you don't use it, you will lose it, right? 100 divided by 10 is how much? 100 divided by 5 is 20. 100 divided by 10? 10. So, if your denominator increases, what happens to the quotient? Your answer, it decreases. Do you see that? So, the same thing here. If my denominator increases, if my rate increases, what happens to the present value? It decreases. Is everybody seeing that? So, mathematically, even if you don't know, you should be able to say mathematically. Do you see that? Right? So, if I apply a higher discount rate to any future cash flow, my present value is going to be much lower. Is everybody seeing that? Similarly, instead of receiving the cash flow in 5 years, if I ask you the question, if I receive the cash flow only at the end of 10th year, what should happen to my present value? Again, it is not hard. It should go down even further, right? The cash that I receive 5 years from today is worth more than the cash that I am going to receive 10 years from today. Is everybody seeing that? Do it for yourself and see. Change the number of years from 5 to 10, okay? So, let us go back to our, so instead of 5, I am going to say 10. Now, look at my present value. It is going down. Is everybody seeing that? Now, this you should remember, right? As a business person, you know, if you are investing in any capital asset, right, which we will see later. So, you are investing in a machine today and you are going to get your future cash flows in the future, right. If you can receive the cash flow soon enough, that is worth more than the cash flow that you will receive farther into the future. Is everybody seeing that, right? It's, you know, remember, a bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush, right? That's all we are saying here, nothing more, right? We have set it up by way of equation, right? And we are trying to say, the longer I have to wait to receive the money, I will be valuing it less today, right? That's all I am saying. So, you understood the relationship, right? Now, how future value, so in the case of present value, if the discount rate is higher or if the period is higher, your present value is going to be lower, and instead of a direct relationship, now we call this inverse relationship, right? Present value will go up when the period goes down and present value will go down when the period goes up, right? Do you see that? Is everybody seeing that? Now, you need to remember this, because as business person, whatever may be your major, again, I honestly don't care. If you call yourself any business major, you need to know this, right? Question so far? So, what all we covered today? Compounding, simple interest, compound interest, right, interest on interest, present value, and the process of discounting. Any questions so far? Now, we are going to introduce more complications, right. Now, if I ask you the question, so the next question would be to introduce more complication, because the real world is much more complicated than this, right. So, let us draw a timeline. Let us draw this timeline. I do not know how this works, each time it goes away. So, let us introduce t is equal to 0, t is equal to 1, t is equal to 2, t is equal to 3, t is equal to 4. So, let us just go up to there. Okay. Now I receive this much cash. Okay. I received 2000 in year 1, 5000 in year 2, 8000 in year 3, 15,000 in year 4. All right. If my discount rate, if R is equal to 6%, what is the value today? So, if I ask you this question, how will you do it? You can do it, you have the tools now. How many of you know how to solve this? So, in this case, present value 1 is equal to 2000 divided by 1.06 raised to the power 1. Present value today, it is always present value 0, not 1, 2 or anything. So, in this case, present value is equal to 1 plus 0.06 raised to the power 2. Present value is equal to 8000 divided by 1.06 raised to the power 3, and in this case present value is equal to 1.06 raised to the power 4. And if I add the 4 up, I got the present value. Is everybody seeing this? Now I am, so what we call unequal cash flows, right? I receive various amounts at different point in time. You have to notice both, right? Different amounts at different points in time. How do I value that today, right? This is the exact principle that you will apply when you are valuing a home or anything like that, right? If your rental income is this much each month and this is your cost of borrowing from the home, if you discount at least at that rate, what is it worth today? So, can you solve this on your own? And when we meet on Thursday, I want everyone to solve this on your own, okay? And then we will take the formula. There is a formula, of course, in Excel, but then you need to know what the Excel does, right? Otherwise, don't call yourself a business major. You need to know that. We will stop there.
Can you